is Charlton Singleton. I am the artist in residence emeritus here at the wonderful Gilliard Center, and welcome to another episode of Raising the Volume. Today, our guest is a young man that is definitely one of the movers and shakers in the Low Country. He's a fantastic musician, entrepreneur, community activist, and we're going to get into all of those things. A really good friend of mine. Please welcome Mr. Michael Brown. Thank you for being here, bro.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah. So now I was trying to think about when I think we officially first met. It's probably in the early 2000s or so.
Officially. Prior to that, though, I remember catching you. I believe you guys used to be down at, was it Chef and Clef?
Ooh.
Was it Chef and Clef then?
Clef, yeah.
It was Chef and Clef.
Chef and Clef,
yeah.
or Mitchell's it turned into.
Mitchell's.
Yeah, all of
I
that.
wasn't old enough to get inside, but Quentin, of course, was, he was one of the guys we all grew up watching. And, when you guys would play. So we would kind of follow him. And I was like, oh, Charlton, this is amazing. Then after that, we would catch you guys downtown at Wild Wings on Sunday night.
Wild Wings Sunday
We're
night.
playing James.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
so,
But I think Charles Lamont, I think officially
introduced me.
introduced us.
Yeah.
And he said, me and my brother Mike, we got this band that we're putting together, and we're looking for some horns and
Zamar.
stuff. Yeah, Zamar. Yeah,
Zamar.
Zamar band.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, you are a product of the Low Country, born and
Absolutely.
raised here. What part of the Low Country are you from?
So I was born, of course, in Charleston County Hospital. And from there, we moved to an area that was called the Ben Tillman Projects. At that time, it was near the old Naval Hospital. And then my parents moved.
Pine Haven area.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Pine Haven area. And then maybe 5 years later, we moved near three interdependent communities, Windsor community, Howard Heights, and then Union Heights area, which they call the Hike.
Right.
All of those areas.
Right.
So we call it the neck area of North Charleston, the southern end of the city. So that's where I was pretty much born and raised.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Hike.
The Hike.
That's right. And you got it. And you have to let people know exactly. Where.
It's the Hike. You don't know where the Hike is? I always tell them, if you don't know where the Hike is, here's the best landmark. The home of the best lima beans and rice and fried chicken in the Low Country, which is Bertha's Kitchen.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you can get the Bertha's, you know where the Hike is.
You know what the Hike is. That's right. That's right. One time, Ranky Tanky, we were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we were on stage, and we had just finished the song, and we were in this really big sort of auditorium. It was like one of those non-denominational church sort of arenas, sort of
okay.
thing, kind of places. And it held like maybe 2,000 people, but there wasn't a lot, people. There's probably like 700 people there, so it seemed like it was nobody there. It was open, and people were spread out. And we finished this song, and Lancaster, Pennsylvania doesn't really have a large population of African Americans. But then this person just yelled out, he said, "I'm from Charleston." I just heard that, and so we've gotten it before where people have said, and I just went, "Oh, okay, yeah, Charleston in the house." And then right after I said that, they said, "I from Ackaby." And I went, "Stop." And Quentin and I lost it right there.
That's right, Ackaby.
He said, "I'm from Ackaby." So when you pinpoint
Where you from?
where you from?
No, not from Low Country. I'm from
Right.
Ackaby.
That's right.
Different people won't believe that certain parts of the Low Country have different cultures. The Hike is different from Ackaby. Ackaby is a little different. Like Arendelle is different from 4 Mile. It's almost like
10 Mile.
Don't insult me. I'm from 10 Mile.
That's right.
I'm not from 4 Mile, and
That's
I'm
right.
not from Arendelle.
I'm from 10 Mile.
That's right.
That's right. I got to make it known.
Yeah.
And my brother yells at me anytime I don't say that.
What, Arendelle?
If I say Arendelle, he'll just be like, "And?"
10 Mile.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, as my daddy say, be Pacific. Not
Yeah,
specific.
not
Be
Pacific. Pacific. So now, speaking of your dad, yeah, did you grow up? Did you have a big family? I mean, I know of,
Huge family,
yeah.
man. I mean, on my mom and my dad's side, my mother is from. She grew up in downtown Charleston, but her family is from the Hugh G. Ondah, and
Hmm.
you may be familiar with an area past Ondah. It's called Woodsville.
Oh yeah,
That's where my grandfather is from.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's from Woodsville.
All right.
So, of course, they migrated to downtown Charleston, and then my dad's family is from the Hampton County area, Yamasee, Cherokee
Mm-hmm.
Plantation,
Mm-hmm.
and so my grandfather moved our family from the Cherokee Plantation to the property that we still own today. Maybe back in 1933, he moved his whole family to the Heights. So he had maybe 8 brothers and sisters. They all moved to Charleston, relocated. So it just our family is just huge, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
cousins galore, and you know
I know.
that's how
That's
it
how
is.
it is.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
how it
And
is.
everybody's your parent, even though
Right.
they're your uncle.
That's right.
They got the same authority.
That's right. Definitely got the authority
Yeah, yeah.
to grab you
Every
and put you in check.
exactly. Your cousins are more like brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
bonus brothers and sisters. So yeah, huge
Right.
family on both sides.
Right. So now, when I, I think before even, well, just like you said before, when you would see, me playing,
Hmm.
I think I saw you first playing with some various groups,
Okay.
in church,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of times you have people that in the Low Country, especially in the African American community, even though you might be of a different denomination,
Hmm.
you still see a lot of same groups, especially if they're prominent groups and things like
Exactly.
that. And so I used to see you playing keys,
Yeah.
and organ,
Yeah.
with a lot of these groups. Now, I know also, and of course, in the African American community, church is just that's the rock.
Absolutely.
That's definitely the rock.
Exactly.
And your father,
My father is
It's-
is a pastor Baptist, and my mother was from a Pentecostal church. So they both had different
Ooh, yeah.
different backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah.
So my grandfather on my mother's side was a Pentecostal pastor. He had maybe 10 members at a church off of Spring Street, right at the corner of King and Spring. There's a building that's still there. He pastored in that church, maybe 10 members or so. So that's where all of the rhythmic patterns comes from, because they
Mhm.
always had drums.
Mhm.
They didn't never really have a keyboard player. They had this big bass drum, and
Mhm.
somebody else had like a snare drum, and
Mhm.
somebody else had like a
Mhm.
tom. It was like percussion. They didn't, and they sang. It
Right.
was hand clapping, washboards, and percussion. Not
Gullah
really.
style,
That's
straight up.
That's exactly what it was.
Mhm.
So, but my grandfather on my dad's side was a Baptist pastor, so it was a little more organized. They had a piano, Hammond organ, still
Mhm.
the hand clapping, no drums.
Right.
So I had the best of both worlds,
Mhm.
and that whole mixture. And my mother played for so many churches. She never really played for one denomination. She'd be playing for United Methodist, Baptist, the AMEs,
Mhm.
the Pentecostals. She just took us everywhere. So that's how we got exposed to so many different. Like you said, in the African American community, we're not just restricted to one denomination. It's
Right.
like it's nothing to
Mhm.
be at a Baptist church at 8 o'clock and a Methodist church at 11.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. You just go
and just go exactly
and you stay in church all day.
all day long.
Cause after regular service, you probably go eat someplace. Then you got to go to a singing
Or
someplace,
or
or
Usher
or
anniversary.
Usher anniversary,
or a tea.
or tea. You go to the tea and get the good,
Cake,
the good
punch.
the ginger ale with
Man,
sherbet,
I always wonder what was in that punch. That's still the best punch on the planet.
ginger ale and lime sherbet.
That's exactly good too.
Yeah, it's good.
Good, man.
But I remember being in the AME church. There was a there was a very good youth choir in the late '80s at Morris Brown,
Hmm.
and I remember like Darrell Ravenel
Mhm.
and Carlos,
Hmm.
Chef Carlos
That's
now,
right.
the world-renowned Chef Carlos. He was directing that, but I used to see them and playing,
Hmm.
for a lot of these young groups, and I just thought that, it was a different choir experience that I grew up with.
Mhm.
Most of the churches that I was a part of, with the exception of my home church, when I was growing up because the infamous Reverend James Blake,
Hmm.
who eventually was at Morris
Morris
Brown,
Brown.
was at our was at my home church before
Zion
Morris.
is your home church, huh?
Zion.
Wow.
Yeah, Greater Zion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see you up in there too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Greater Zion. Always.
Yeah.
I remember Mr. Ted.
Yeah, of course,
I
Ted.
remember Ted.
Ted, yeah, still
Running
Ted's
the
still doing his
chromatic
thing.
bass line,
Yeah,
brother.
that's right. He still does it.
He's still running the
He's
chromatic
still
bass line.
running a chromatic bass
Don't
line.
matter what key.
That's right.
Ted is gonna run the
That's
chromatic
his
bass
lick.
line.
That's his lick. So, but yeah. Now, how did you get into? I mean, I know that growing up and you're seeing all of this stuff, but what drew you to playing keys? At
So
church.
it was so interesting. Jerome Haywood asked me that yesterday. So every kid is attracted to drums. I mean, you might fram on the keys, but we're mesmerized by drums. So drums was my first instrument, and of course, Quentin Baxter was the guy we all
Right.
watched. I mean, literally from 4 to 5 years old, I could tell you the drum sets Quentin had when he was a teenager, when his brother was playing saxophone, when we were being
Calvin, yeah,
at churches
church,
from Reform House of God to Heaven Bound Church. I mean, I remember these things vividly from 4, 5, and 6 and 7 years old. So I knew music was definitely going to be a part of the fabric of my life. So I studied drums for a while, got in a band, practiced, playing drums. And so my mother bought my brother, BJ, a keyboard. And then they bought me drums, of course. But then BJ ended up playing the drums more, and I ended up playing the
Okay.
keys.
Okay, yeah.
Because she was a keyboard player. And then I'll never forget, at 11 years old, Bishop Brian Moore moved to Charleston. And so Darrell at the time and Joey Jones and those guys were those were the guys I
yeah.
could see at that time and hear.
Pause really quick. Joey Jones, ladies and gentlemen, Joey Jones was probably one of the greatest Hammond organ players on the planet. He played for the great James Cleveland. There is a legend that you could call out any hymn in the AME hymn book and by number. You didn't have to say the tune name. You could call out the number, and Joey knew what hymn that was and could play it in any key. He was just that dynamic of an organist.
At a young age, and I think
Yes.
you mentioned Reverend Blake, because remember, before Carlos and Darrell were really taking over Morris Brown Youth Choir, Joey Jones was a part
Right.
of,
Exactly.
part of that as well.
Exactly.
And then when Joey got the call to go to California with Reverend Cleveland, Darrell, so when Bishop Moore moved to New York, of course, New York has a whole different sound of music. So
Right.
Bishop Moore was a musician. So he told Darrell, well, Darrell, you still at Morris Brown. So what I want you to do is teach Mike to play so I can have a musician. And needless to say, me and Darrell, we never really got together, but I watched Darrell from a distance. So they kind of helped shape my sound.
Right.
So maybe by 12 years old, 13, 12, I was playing in churches, and it just started developing from there. And my passion for it, I mean, I didn't really play drums anymore, but I really just got attracted to the keys and the organ and the drawbars, and the organs just mesmerized me because you could do so much with them. 2 feet on the pedals, you gotta use I just love the organ, man. So it's definitely a passion of mine. But that's how it moved. We hear, we see, and then we fall in love with it.
You know what? There's something about that. I think maybe Roderick and I were talking about it. Roderick Simmons and I were talking about the sort of apprenticeship that goes on in black churches with musicians, and you see, you could go to a number of churches and see people playing their instruments and see a little kid watching them intensely or sitting next to them or whatever, and then eventually that kid grows up playing that instrument, and the whole process just keeps evolving that way.
Absolutely.
There's something about that.
In the church, for most of us who were not trained prior to learning our gift, of course, you were talented. I'm certain before you learned how to read music or anything else, the church gave us that opportunity to grow. They endured the bad notes, the off rhythms, before you really became great. they cheered you on as a
Oh yeah,
child.
come on,
Come
baby.
on, baby. So it gave you that encouragement. I was listening to Les Brown yesterday, and he was talking about how kids develop, courage, and that foundation is built between the ages of, I believe he said 0 and 5 to 7 years old. So when you're growing up in church, you think about our Easter speeches at 4 and 5 years old. They
Yeah,
clap. You messed it up,
yeah,
they still
still
clap.
clapping.
So it kind of helps you overcome your fear of talking in front
Right.
of people because these people, they're telling you,
Yeah.
listen, it's okay, you're
Yeah.
messing up.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentally have that with you as you grow. So the church for a lot of musicians was really the breeding ground for greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Still is.
yeah.
So now, in addition to being, just one of the most prolific Hammond organ players and keyboard players that I've ever heard, you're also a very good and very skilled composer.
Mhm.
You've written a lot of songs.
Yeah.
Um, is there a method to your the method to the madness on how you compose, or?
I get inspired by different things. Like I was on a plane. There was a song I wrote for Tasha Cobbs. I was on a plane. We did a tour in Europe, and on the way from Europe, we had this 8-hour flight.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting on the flight, and I'm just thinking about what we're going back home to. It's Christmas time, so a lot of things. So I started writing down some things, and then while I'm writing, I'm not necessarily trying to rhyme. Some people try to rhyme the last word of each
Right.
phrase. I'm not thinking. I'm just trying to be poetic. So it started off as a poem, and then I put music to it. But then there are other times where I just hear a whole groove, and it's like, man, we got to write something to this groove. So we're
Right.
intentional about writing to the groove. So there's so many different ways I approach, and it's based on the type of song we're really trying to write at that time too. So anything can bring inspiration. A lot of times I like to sit outside. I heard one minister say, if you really want to get inspiration, just sit outside, look at the trees or the water, or, anything in nature will inspire you.
Mhm.
So I often do that as well.
And you lead a very dynamic group of musicians,
Mm-hmm.
aptly named Mike Brown and Focus.
Focus. Yeah, Focus is a group of people from different denominations, vibrant individuals who like to explore gospel music in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
which is why sometimes one song might have a vocoder and
Yeah.
a rhythm that's way
Yeah.
up,
Been
and
there,
then
yeah.
another one might sound like traditional hand
Right,
clapping.
right, yeah.
Another one might sound like praise and worship. So they're colorful, and we try to express ourselves through our music. And these people have we've been together for a while, and we just kind of connect, man. And
Mhm.
it's been an amazing part of my life because it's helped us all grow into who we are.
And how many recordings have you all done so far?
We have done maybe about 7 recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 7 recordings.
7 full-length recordings.
Full-length recordings. We're actually
Yes.
going to work on one I'll call you about.
Okay.
I'm not going to do like the other guy. Call you and say,
Didn't say that. Don't
no,
call
I'm
me
not
back.
going to say, yeah. I'm going to call you. We're going to try to do something at the end of the year.
Well,
Hopefully your schedule.
hey, we've done it before. Just
Yeah,
hit
we'll
me.
do it again.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So now, jumping ahead, um, uh, one of the things that I have observed of you that has been very admirable, and I continue to enjoy watching and listening to you, is your involvement with the community and activism now.
Mhm.
Is that something that started off when you were a lot younger and just sort of, came to?
I think most of what happens in my life was built from the foundation I received from my family. My grandfather, my dad's father, he was a pastor at this time of 4 churches. They would go to one church each Sunday. One
Mhm.
was in Beaufort, near Beaufort. One was in North
It's like
Charleston.
a circuit.
Yeah, just different places. So he was always active, even in the community. He's actually responsible for the roads being paved in the Heights, because the Heights, back in those days, you had the Winslow community, which was predominantly white community, and then you had the Heights, which was one street over in separation. And you won't believe that one side looked like you were in the
Mhm.
gates of heaven, and the other side looked like you walked into the gates of hell.
Mhm.
One street over.
Mhm.
The houses were 3 times the size. Even the streets till this day, if you go in Winslow community, they're two-way streets. But on Union Heights, every street is a one-way street.
Hmm.
So the houses are much smaller. The roads are much narrow. I mean, communities that are actually conjoined together.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have paved roads. So he advocated, from what I was told, for paved roads. They didn't have street lights. He advocated for the street lights. So he has always, in a sense, been more than a pastor, but he's been a community activist and a mentor. So we kind of watched him not just work in the four walls of the church, but his whole community drive kind of inspired us all.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I always aspired to be like my grandfather. So pretty much everything he did, I just watched and gleaned from. Even the way he washed his car. You know, he would wash his car, change his oil. You won't believe this. He always wore a suit, but they would have those overalls that you step in.
Yeah.
So he would have a full suit on, take the jacket off, step into the
Yes.
hole,
My grandfather
zip it
used
up.
to do that too.
man, change his oil,
Yes.
or cut his grass,
Yes.
come,
And then,
wash his hair, come out of it, and go. You know, so
Yes.
this was the type of guy we always saw him. You know, a hard worker.
Yes.
You know, so these small things we learned so much from.
Mhm.
So me, as I got older, I was involved in the community. And for me, politics, of course, I never really had an interest in politics, but I was always an advocate for the community. I would do Stop the Violence rallies, mentoring programs, etc. So I always was active. Even my relationship with Mayor Summy developed prior to me running for council, because they would help support our initiatives and our efforts with these Stop the Violence rallies in the high crime areas like the Heights and Shakur Cherokee, Dorchester Road. So we would be doing all of these things. And then one day it just hit me. I was like, you know, I'm doing the best I can with the resources I have. But if I can get involved on a policy level, especially with watching gentrification happen,
That's where it is. The policy
so many
level.
different levels, I was like, you know, being an activist is one thing, but policy is what kind of changes the fabric of what's going on in the city. So if I could just get involved on a policy level, I think I could be more effective. So that's what started, you know, my drive and my passion for council or for politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I have it's a hard subject to talk about, but I remember when we had the unfortunate tragedy with at EmanuelAME,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember turning on the television and seeing the news conference, and I saw a few of the local politicians and clergy
Mm-hmm.
that were there, and I don't think you were in office yet,
I
but
wasn't.
you were right there
I
as
was there.
well. What drove you to be, in on that particular scene at that moment?
So believe it or not, that night we were in service at Life Center. It was what we called Holy Convocation. And so during the middle of the service, I never forget Bishop Moore. It's like the service has to be shut down. There's a shooter on the loose that's going around shooting people at churches. At the time, they didn't know whether it was an isolated incident or whether they would just show up where, large groups of people were. So it was in our best interest to leave. So then I got a call from Jerome Haywood and Tory Fields. They could barely talk. They called me. You could hear them. They were
Mhm.
crying. They said they've killed some people at churches. Bring your this is what, and like you said, this is uncut. So this is what
Mhm.
the instructions we received. Bring your weapons, meet us downtown, because we have to protect the churches. That's what the message was. It wasn't, let's come together for peace. Bring your weapons, because we are going to protect
churches.
the churches. That's what we're going to do. So we sped, we got down here, everybody had their weapons. Mr. Rowley, Joe Rowley at the time, who was the mayor, had a conversation with us, and he said, guys, we really don't know what's happening right now. What I would ask you guys to do for us is maintain peace here, as because at that time it wasn't a whole lot of us. It was
Right.
maybe 20 of us. Wendell Gilliard was in the midst, and so as time progressed, minutes,
Mhm.
people started coming from everywhere. But what Wendell Gilliard told us in that moment, he said, "Guys, we're passionate, we're frustrated, we don't know what's going on. We don't know. We didn't know where the shooter was. We didn't know if he was a sniper somewhere, but we were willing to put our lives on the line because we wanted to protect the churches. That's
Right.
what we wanted to do." So Wendell said, "Listen, we have to maintain order. So what we're going to do is pray every 30 minutes, and people begin to see that shot of us holding hands
Mm-hmm.
around the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
when the Gilead said, listen, if we pray, when people come, they'll begin to see people praying, so they'll understand it's not really a hostile environment. And I know a lot of people would like to take credit for why the city of Charleston did not get destroyed that night, because those same things have happened in other cities
Very
and
much.
riots have happened.
Right.
And of course, unfortunately, we experienced something similar um, in the city of Charleston after that. But in this particular incident, we were able to maintain the peace by praying every 30 minutes. And as guys came, we would encourage each other, and we stayed there all night long.
Mm-hmm.
The crazy thing is, my wife had just given birth the day prior
Mm.
to my youngest daughter, so she was at MUSC Hospital at the time, still recovering.
Mm-hmm.
So I would leave here and then go check on them, and then we would come back out here, because we were really passionate about maintaining the order and maintaining the peace, but still being in a place where we could protect our,
The church.
our churches. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was not elected, so it was not a political move for me. It wasn't. It was just really about trying to be in place and do my part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Part of the community fabric.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
So then, you you do end up. I mean, we kind of talked about it before, but you do run and for office.
I do run. I run it against an incumbent. He was in office for maybe 12 or 14 years or something, and I win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I win.
And you win. And so, how many years have you been in office now?
So this would be maybe my 6th year,
Mm-hmm.
my second term. So we got terms of 4 years. So this is maybe the second year in my second term. So maybe
Has
6
there
years.
been anything, or what are some of the things that you have learned as being on this side?
On this side, I've learned that there's a process to everything, even as it relates to something as simple as a speed bump, or certain things. There's a policy and a process that we all have to go through. We just can't show up one day and say, listen, okay, we're gonna redo this road tomorrow, because there's a procurement process, there's a bidding process,
Mhm.
there's you have to get it approved. There's so many different meetings you got to go through, and that can become frustrating. But it's taught me a whole lot of patience, and just staying true to the process, and it's also allowed me to help teach my constituents about the process.
Mhm.
Listen,
Mhm.
guys, we're working on this. This is where we are. If you and if you guys show up and voice your concerns, you'll get what you want.
Right.
But those that don't speak up, they say closed mouths don't get fed.
Right.
A lot of times they end up being ignored. So I've learned how to make the system work in the best interest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Have
Okay.
you had any other thoughts of any higher offices?
I've had some thoughts. I've had some thoughts of,
You don't have to name any offices.
Yo,
but-
no. I've had some thoughts about running in some other offices, state or maybe local
Mhm.
positions, and I've definitely been praying about it. And I told God, even coming into politics wasn't really a part of my plan. I wanted to just be a musician, write, tour, travel the world,
Mhm.
do like you're doing right now, Ranky Takey, just enjoy. That's what I want to do. That's what I really want to do, But I'm like, God, whatever plan you got for me, I'm willing to do. So I'm willing to move forward if that's in the script for me. Wherever I could be most effective. I don't want to just clout chase or chase positions, but if I feel like I can make more of an impact in that position, then I'll definitely I'll move forward in it.
Well, just from the looks of it, and I'm not saying this because we boys or anything, but you have quite a following of people that respect a lot of the things that you do,
Yes, sir.
if not all of the things that you do, but musically, community wise. I remember last year, as we were all sort of on the ropes, with the pandemic and everything, and you had a lot of initiatives that you were going, like tell me about the food drive.
So yeah, during the pandemic, we decided, me, Jerome, and Gerard Frazier decided we were going to partner with the resource center and feed people, because even during that time, people take for granted that others have jobs. But believe it or not, even those that have jobs sometimes don't make enough to make ends meet, if that makes sense.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, we're living in a time where people still making $13 an hour, and that's not going to work. You know, especially when your mortgage or your rent is $800, $900, and that's on the low end. We're talking more like 12 and 50. So people really needed some type of assistance and help. So what we did was we partnered with them. We pulled our own resources together. North Charleston assisted us with the law enforcement and the
Mm-hmm.
manpower, and we just pooled our monies together. And because the way the food bank works is they'll donate a certain amount of canned goods, but when it comes to meats, you have to purchase a certain amount. So
Mm-hmm.
we would do that weekly, and we just committed
Weekly.
weekly. We committed to doing it, man, and it was really putting, each other in danger because the pandemic had just started.
Mm.
So we didn't really know,
Right.
what. So all we could do was mask up, and we could have easily stayed at home, but that wasn't who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who we are. So we decided we were going to help feed the people throughout the pandemic, and we did that for months until the government decided that they were going to let people start going back to work, and and we never know what's going on right now. We may
Mm-hmm.
have to go back to it. I
Right.
mean, based on the
Mm-hmm.
numbers increasing, hopefully and preferably not. But we just wanted to do our part as related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these food drives would be uh, in the parking lot of the bistro.
Blue Note Bistro, man, it would be massive. We would feed thousands of people, man. And it was so amazing because teamwork is what makes the dream work. We would have volunteers. Some people would actually show up for a basket of food, and then they would say, you know what, I want to work for this. How can I help? So they would park their cars, get out, put on the gloves,
Mm-hmm.
mask up, and just serve. My mother, she's in her 60s, but she was out there every morning,
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the first people out there
Mm-hmm.
packaging. It was a whole, we would have to be there maybe 6 o'clock in the morning to pick up the food, then bring it. And it was a faith walk. And I tell you this, Charlton, we never had a forklift. So when they would put the food on these pallets, on these
Oh
trucks,
yeah.
they would drop them off. So we would show up to the bistro every day. It was a struggle trying to figure out, well, how are we gonna get these pallets off of it? So we would either have to break the pallets down or go to one of the surrounding businesses all the way down Cross County Road or someplace we could find.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, do you mind? Please help us. But we didn't let that stop us. It was God always helps people who steps out first.
Mm-hmm.
So we would step out, and it was every week there was somebody different with a forklift pulling the
Mm-hmm.
pallets
Mm-hmm.
off.
Mm-hmm.
Those things. I mean, simple things, but I mean, so many people helped to make that happen, man. But it was just a beautiful thing seeing everybody come together to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right there at the bistro.
At the Blue Note.
So now, how did you? Uh, what made you decide to, open, the bistro? Because you know as well as I do, there's a lot of restaurants slash music venues or clubs or however you want to
Everywhere.
that have tried and said this is going to be the one,
Yeah,
but
and we have
yours
not.
has ridiculously been successful.
Man, believe it or not, of course, so my background is nowhere near culinary. Like, I think I might know how to make an egg sandwich.
Eggs, egg and rice.
Egg and rice. I definitely can make some egg and rice.
How many of y'all out there know about egg and rice?
I don't think they know what egg and rice is. But if you haven't tried it, try
It's
some
a low
good
country
egg. It's
thing.
a low country specialty. So I barely know how to cook egg and rice, but I understand branding. I understood business. So the interesting thing about that was Henry, who's an entrepreneur as well. He had a beauty salon. Henry wanted to do a customer appreciation for all of his customers. So our friend Hollywood at the time was a
Yeah.
part owner of Souls.
Oh
So,
yeah. They're right. Yeah.
yeah. So in December, Christmas time, they hired me. They said, Mike, you do the music for it. And so I had a lot of people come out to see me do. We were getting ready to literally leave the next day to go on tour in Europe. So I had the people that were performing with me in Europe. I was like,
I'm gonna
this is
come
going
back
to
to
be a
that
rehearsal.
too. I'm gonna come back to that.
All right.
All right. Go
So I
ahead.
said, this is going to be a rehearsal. So we came and did our whole soul show, everything
Mhm.
we did. People loved it. They enjoyed it. The place was packed. So we go on, we touring. So I get a call from Henry on January 2nd. We get ready to come home. Henry said, Mike, The venue that we just did that whole thing at, um, it's available. I said less than a month, it's available. He
Hmm.
said, Mike, when you get home, let's go by and look at it. Ironically, it happens to be in my city council district. So I called and
Mm-hmm.
checked with the landlord. I said, is this space available? They said, yeah, in 30 days it will be. So the first person I call is our friend Carlos Brown.
Yeah.
He has the culinary experience. I said, Carlos, listen, I've never done a restaurant. If you think this can work, I'll give you the concept. If you think this can work, I'm willing to take it. He said, Mike, it definitely can work. So Carlos kind of gave me the blueprint, business plan, talked me through what I needed to do,
Mm-hmm.
inventory. I mean, he just gave me a
Mm-hmm.
tutorial. I mean, and really after he'd broken it down, he said, if you put these people in place, this is going to work. So I did what he told me to do, man. And the music part of it, I knew and I understood already.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Yeah.
he had the food part of it. Henry
Mm-hmm.
understood, so we just brought the elements together, and
Nice.
thank God it's still moving.
It's still moving,
Still
moving
moving,
well.
man.
Really quick, about Carlos. Tell everybody just a little bit about Carlos and his culinary.
So Carlos is from the east side of Charleston, but he's moved on to be a world-renowned chef. He's cooked for people like Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, a lot of the NFL
NFL
players.
teams and stuff.
And he
Yeah.
recently opened Shrimp and Grits, which is in the Citadel Mall. And within the next 2 weeks or so, he has another location that's going to open in Monk's Corner.
Really? You know what?
Absolutely.
He did tell us a little bit about that because, ironically, and this was a great idea. One of the things that we do in Ranky Tanky is when we go out and we talk about Gullah, because that's what the band,
Hmm.
is. There was a cultural arts center that brought us to their town, and they wanted to integrate, or they wanted to put in a different experience for their concert goers. So what they did is before the concert, they had a dinner, and they flew in Carlos
To do the Gullah food.
to do the food. They asked us about it, and Kiana said you need to call Carlos Brown,
Wow.
and they called Carlos, and they flew him out there, and he prepared food, and bruh. I mean, it's one thing when you on the road and you can get a good
A
restaurant,
decent,
some,
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah, yeah,
depending on what the city you're
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
But when Carlos came and was like, "I'm feeding my folks," you
Let's go.
know, we ate about 3-4 plates.
Man, it's an experience.
It is.
The food
It
and
is.
the music.
It
it's
is.
an experience.
It was an
man.
experience.
It's an experience.
Man, so I didn't know that he was in the mix on
He
that
was.
blueprint
He
of that
did.
sign.
He
Yeah.
absolutely did, man. He showed me the ropes, man, and I really appreciate him because I took what he taught me, and now we're gonna keep on expanding. Of course, we're getting ready to open up at Northwoods Mall,
Mm-hmm.
and then hopefully from there it could be Savannah, it could be Myrtle Beach,
Mm-hmm.
it could be Charlotte.
Options.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we
Mm-hmm.
plan to just take it and franchise it and keep it
Mm-hmm.
moving.
Well, my brother, I appreciate all that you do,
Thank
all
you,
that you
brother.
have done and continue in the future with this community. Can't wait to be on the stage again with you.
Yep.
You
Soon
know,
we got
soon we do have a gig soon.
Yeah.
You know,
really soon.
yeah, really soon. So once again, I appreciate you for coming out, taking a
Thank
little
you.
time, because we were joking around at the beginning. As soon as you wake up, your phone probably already got 18 missed calls.
Absolutely. Hey, old ladies, Mr. Brown, I'm having a problem with my tree in my backyard. They call me about everything. And,
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
I'm here to serve. This
Right.
is what I signed up
that's
for.
You sign up
This is
for
what I
it.
signed
You
up
put
for.
your name on the line for
That's
that.
right.
That's
So
right.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
I got to do it, man.
Well, once again, I appreciate you,
Thank
man.
you, brother.
Thank you for being on our show.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you at the next episode.